Good morning. It's a bright, beautiful morning in New York City, though we've got frigid temperatures here. Not as bad as you guys in the South, and not as bad as it is up north, but we're cold and we'll be cold for today and tomorrow. And then folks can go about doing whatever they normally do. Nothing really stops, just if you're lucky like I am. I can say today and tomorrow, I'm staying in. This is all brought to us, this wonderful, erratic weather, by your local fossil fuel company. It's no wonder a lot of the Western states are Republican. Who in the world would fund them other than fossil fuels? In Wyoming, they're saying they don't want any EV vehicles in their state. No EV vehicles. They're banned. I don't know how you can ban an electric vehicle in your state, but that's what they're going to do. In Florida, which really doesn't seem to have any oil at all, but is aligned with the Gulf states, they're putting a tax on electric stoves and no tax on gas. Odd, since we know that gas is a polluter and is the main cause of asthma for a lot of people in the United States. And we're all trying to get off gas stoves as quickly as possible because of the health knock-on effects. But why would DeSantis care? Who knows what his kitchen is powered by? Or if he even has a kitchen. He probably orders in. He doesn't have time for anyone to cook for him when he's busy banning books, changing the curriculum of Florida's students, and making sure that gas is the cooking form of choice over electric so folks can have more pollution. I understand that they are still not fixed up, even in the better cities like Sarasota. They haven't maintained all their buildings yet from the destruction that occurred in the last hurricane. But why would DeSantis care? He's only interested in banning books and making people illiterate, not questioning, so that he doesn't have to worry about any citizen assemblies. Why would they assemble if they didn't know what was wrong with their way of life to begin with? Citizen assemblies are really good. And in The Economist recently, I've just read that of all the nations in the Western countries, we're the only nation that has anywhere from 5 to 10% illiteracy. That's a crime. But hey, if you're like DeSantis and the rest of the Republican Party, why would you care? An uneducated populace doesn't rebel. An uneducated populace takes what you give them and keeps quiet. And what is making the Republican Party as dictatorial as it is? It's simple. They're powered by gas and oil. That's where you find a lot of the extractions. That's where you find a lot of the wells. So who's paying them? Big oil is paying them, and they're still into climate denial, and they don't want us to go to clean energy. After all, if we went into clean energy, what would they do with their $50 billion in profit? Horrors, if they invested it in renewables and actually gave a darn about the health and welfare of fellow Americans. You can't tell me you're being patriotic if you're voting for a Republican who cares about gas and oil and doesn't care about a clean environment without toxicity, without pollutants. I think the people's health is important. All of our health is important. And the only way we're going to have an increased lifespan and not the worst lifespan of all Western nations also is to have better access to clean water and clean air. Right now, the folks along the Colorado River, they're still arguing over water rights. I'm sure sooner or later, as the water dwindles down to nothing, they'll finally get it right. They haven't yet. They gotta divvy it up. 40 million people need water. So there's a lot of problems, and we can't afford to be Democrat or Republican just because our grandparents were that way, or our great-grandparents, or they promised you the moon and they lied better than the other person. No siree. We got to think about who's really going to pass the bills that bring us to the 22nd century. The first 20 years of this century, forget about it as far as I'm concerned. These have been wasted years. Stagnant wages, unions trying to make a foothold into the society, and because the laws have been changed against them, they have to argue with employers just to get a leg in. This is not right. No siree. Luckily, science carries on. Inventions carry on. They're using nanotechnology and titanium and minute gold particles to help us defog our windshields and I guess whatever else fogs up. They're using this chat GPT. You give it a word, and like we used to say, you thought you were a poet, but you didn't know it. Well, now you could be a poet with chat GPT. You could also, if you're writing the right words, you can get job applications as well. And they've got a new invention in AI called DALL-E. And that, if you give it some images and a little text, it'll draw you whatever you want. Mathematics keeps going. We're sending many vehicles to the moon, not just one. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to go to the Lycée Française and hear a talk on the possible trips to Mars. Of course, we could have gone to Mars in the 80s if the mission hadn't been scrapped. So we'll go 40 years later. We know we can do it. We could have done it 10 years after the Apollo missions, but we just didn't. So there's a lot to be done in our world. It's time for a change. The Republican Party has left the party of the people. It started leaving with the Powell Memorandum. It's pretty much completed now because they're not into new ideas. They just are into denial of everyone else moving forward. And I think that it's time to speak up. We don't need big liars anymore. I don't know that we ever needed big liars. What we need are people who can do, who say, yes, I can do it, or I can get it done. And if I don't get it done, hey, somebody else will get it done for me. I remember when I was at Ford Motor Company, you never said no. You just said yes, and you figured out how it was going to get done. That's all. I remember when I used to go to the air houses, which are literally what it says. It's an air house on the top of the factory roof. And all the guys would say to me, you couldn't have got in there. You could never open those doors, which is true. Took 80 pounds pressure. But somebody always helped me out. And I was always able to get in and take a look around. Could I do it myself? No. Did I get help? You bet. And I was happy for the help. It got me into places I could never get into on my own. But I knew how the manufacturing system worked because of it. I wasn't afraid, and I trusted people. And I think that's what we all got to do. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak up. The Marshall Project is now putting videos in the prison system, and they're letting prisoners tell their stories, talk about their jobs, what they do with their lives, and what they want out of life when they get out. And we're going to be able to listen to those videos. And I think that's important because it connects people with the outside, because so many people in prison probably shouldn't be there at all. The Brennan Law Center is looking at police reform, and I think that's a good thing too. You can't have police who look upon us, the people, any people that they encounter, as the enemy. You look upon someone as the enemy, you're going to shoot them and ask questions afterwards. The police aren't at war with us. There are, I'm sure, 90% really good people in the police department. But there are a couple, for whatever reason, not that they're good or bad people, that they're scared themselves and they don't know what they're going to find. I know. I actually had a situation like that when I lived in Lawrence years ago. A policeman went with me to my home. The alarm was going off. We go upstairs to the second floor, look in a bedroom that had been ransacked. I knew by whom, and I told the guy it was probably one of my kids. And we see the doors ajar. Well, that policeman was scared to death because I was in the room with him. And he said, "Stand back." And he got into a crouching position, gun out and drawn. And he opens up the door to the closet, and this 6-foot-tall Wayne Newton doll is about to fall on him. And I'm yelling, "Don't kill it, don't kill it. It's a doll. It's not a person." Well, that guy, he was shaking like a leaf. And he said to me, "Don't tell my partner downstairs. Nobody will let me live this down." I felt sorry for the guy. I wouldn't say a word. I knew that most likely the alarm had gone off for no reason. And we did check the whole house. Nothing was out of place. However, that young man was scared to death, and he would have shot a doll. So, we got to train folks. With training, with psychology, people can indeed change. Is it easy? No. I know that too for a fact. It's not easy to change. But can we change? Yes. Our lives really do depend upon us changing, and we can do that. So as you see, everything's a matter of perspective. We can't place judgment. All we can do is try to do better and to train people better so that they don't look upon the rest of us as the enemy. And that goes for folks who aren't in the police department too. There are a lot of different nationalities in this country. We all got to be seen. We all got to be heard. And if you give most of us a chance, I'm pretty positive 99% of us are pretty darn decent. And I know that's a judgment. But hey, you can define decent any way you like. So when you go to the polling booths, start asking questions. We don't want illiteracy. We don't want book banning. We don't want electric vehicles banned, nor do we want the banning of electric stoves. The goal is to get to the 22nd century. Take care, everyone, and thanks for listening.